Hey everybody, Nick here, and this morning I got a disassembly video for you on this little guy. This is a Spyderco Sage number 5. First off, a quick note, like all Spydercos, disassembling this knife actually voids the factory warranty, so you gotta, just keep that in mind. They're usually not terrible about it if you don't screw it up, but still, there you go. So I just got this in the mail yesterday, and being the crazy person that I am, first thing on my mind is taking the thing apart. Not only so I can see how it ticks, but so I can get everything lubed up in a way that I like. First, though, unfortunately, there's some unpleasantness here. When I went this morning, just testing for this, and put the screwdriver in the pivot, I twisted and I twisted and I twisted, and I couldn't make any headways on it. And the reason for that is Loctite. So I use Loctite a lot in my channel, but I'm using the small stuff, the 242 blue stuff, and that lets go with a little bit of force. What they're using may not actually be Loctite brand, whatever, but it's a thread locker that's very, very strong, and Spyderco tends to do this on occasion just to make sure that the knife doesn't come out of adjustment, because they don't really believe in disassembling the knife. So that adds a first step. If you ever find a knife that you just cannot turn whatsoever, that probably means they're using industrial strength Loctite, and you need to deal with that. The solution is actually just to use a hairdryer. Make sure you got a hairdryer that allows you to use high heat, or a heat gun will work too. And all that I did, quite literally, and I'm not going to do it on camera because it's loud and unpleasant, but I just set the knife down like this so that the heat from the hairdryer was blowing right onto the pivot there. And then gave it maybe 2 minutes, got it to the point where it was hot enough that I really didn't want to be touching it. And then just went at the pivot screw, and it came out no problem. In fact, you could see the Loctite residue on there. Then I flipped it around to hit these screws here, gave it another couple of minutes, and unscrewed it, no problem. You don't want to try and overwhelm Loctite with torque. It's a bad idea. So, there you go. That's the very first step in disassembling this knife, is to bust out the hairdryer and actually get the screws out the first time. After you do that, though, it's free and easy for the rest of your life, and so I can just, having now done that, pop out the screws as I see fit, and so we're just going to jump into that. At some level, I'm sympathetic with the whole Loctite approach because for most people who don't want to maintain and take apart their tools, it's kind of a little bit unfortunate when somebody, comes out of adjustment, for instance. If your pivot gets way too loose, the knife gets potentially dangerous. And so, again, I can kind of almost see how Spyderco would say, you know what, we're going to put the Loctite in there so that the pivot stays the same. And this knife is on washers, so it doesn't particularly need that much maintenance, but it's still a good idea to be able to do it. And so, yeah, there you go. But anyways, I've just unscrewed this, and this, and that allows me to pop the knife open. So I'm going to start with popping this little bit of carbon fiber and G10 off there. You can see here on the underside that this is just G10. There's nothing particularly fancy or special about it. It's just more G10. The carbon fiber on the top is just a ply, basically, on top of that. It's not peel ply carbon fiber, though. I've made that mistake on video in the past, and oh boy, did I hear about it. So, there we go. We've got that popped off here. The next step is going to be to pop the liner off, and I can already tell that this lanyard tube here is going to be a pain in my neck. Hey, actually, this lanyard tube was not a pain in my neck. So now the next step is just going to be to pop the pivot on over, and actually, while I'm here, I'll just show you, this is kind of an interesting difference for the Sage 5 relative to the 1 and the 2. You've got this internal stop pin track here, which is something that'll need a little bit more maintenance. But anyways, there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this guy open. By the way, Torx T8 bit right there. And I'm just going to use this little bar, which is a bit driver extension, and just use it to provide a little bit of leverage and kind of pop the pivot loose a little bit here. I know I should be using a plastic spudger or something like that, but I don't know. I've got the lock popped open in order to reduce the amount of tension on the entire system here. Man, tolerances here are a little on the tight side. Let's see here. What can I do to get in there? This is a, oh, by the way, I want to thank my viewer Magnus for sending this guy, well, not sending this guy along, but for offering to buy it from me before I'd even bought it. That gave me an opportunity to do it at a nice price. And There we go. So this is now popped off. Beautiful. Beautiful. Whoa there. And, come on now. The knife is fully disassembled. Booyakasha. Alrighty. All set. Pop out the pivot. Come on, you little bugger. And the rest of it comes loose. And so now we have the Sage 5 down to its component parts here. You got scales on either side, which look just fine. You've got yourself the blade, the washers here. You've got yourself your compression lock liner, your other liner, a couple of standoffs, a stop pin here for the... I'm not entirely sure. This stop pin may actually be for when the knife closes. That's going to be my bet. Maybe opens. I'm not 100% sure. I'll tell you when we finish it. But anyways, so now we're fully disassembled. Let me get my paper towel and... Oh, where is the alcohol? There it is. Alrighty. So, using some rubbing alcohol here, just isopropyl. I'm going to go ahead and wipe down everything. This is not a grody knife. This does not even need wiping down, but I'm going to do it anyways because I want the only stuff on the knife to be what I put there. In many ways, one of the good arguments for disassembling a knife is that kind of a control. I am a bit of a control freak. I will freely admit this fact. Oh, you can see here, look at this. You can see the residue of the thread locker they put in there. That's a little on the ugly side. Whatever. But I bet now that I get that cleaned out of there, this is going to be a much smoother knife. Let's let that soak for a second here. But anyways, I'm a little bit of a control freak sort of person. I think it goes nicely with what I do. If you give a damn about milliseconds and things like that, then you're going to be an odd person. But nonetheless, when I actually break down a knife for maintenance, I have the advantage of I control everything that's in there. There's no grease, there's no dirt, there's no oil that I didn't put there. So everything is by my choice. And that's kind of nice. It just lets me trust a little bit more, and it lets me maintain a little bit better. So interestingly enough, right on here, let's see if I can show this off. Focus, there we go. There are actually little chunks of something in there, which makes me think maybe it's like a little bit of the G10 that popped through. But that makes me suspect, and you can see a little of it on the washer as well, it makes me suspect that the action's about to get a lot better once we put this guy back together. And again, another role for disassembly is that you are able to do a little bit of quality assurance and cleaning that maybe it wasn't cost efficient for the factory to do themselves. That's just a beautiful thing, because you can end up with a knife that's better than it was on day one if you're able to break it down and take care of it. You don't have to. There are people for whom that just doesn't make much sense. But for me, it sure does. And I really don't feel like I own a knife until I've taken it apart, given it a real good cleaning, and got it all lubed back up and ready to go. There's still a bunch of crud up on this. I'm even wondering if that might be some of the Loctite, if they didn't go a little heavy on this. The action on the knife out of the box actually isn't bad at all, but I'm really thinking it might be about to improve. Because any grit or gunk or junk in there is just going to be unpleasant and is going to cause problems for you. So this right here is just a piece of leather that I've doped with some polishing compound, some diamond. I think this is 1 micron polishing compound. And all I'm doing here is I'm running the washer against it with the desire. You can see a little of the polishing compounds rubbing up on there. But with the desire to smooth it out a little bit and to remove anything that remains and is unpleasant. This is completely unnecessary, but again, it helps to smooth the knife out. And this is something that Spyderco didn't have time to do in all likelihood at the factory. Even the Taichung factory isn't going to pay this close of attention. I'm going to go ahead and drop that on there. Okay, I see it's actually scratching up my strop a little tiny bit, which makes me wondering if there's a burr on there. Let's run my fingernail over it here. Yeah, I think I'm wearing off a burr. So again, I'm optimistic that this knife is going to be just one heck of a folder by the time I'm done with it here. And mind you, I'm not crapping on Spyderco here. I mean, I am for the warranty policy. I still think that's stupid, and for the Loctite, for that matter. At least use a lesser Loctite to make it a little easier here. But it's really hard to do this kind of quality control at really big bulk production levels. I mean, Chris Reeve Knives does similar, although even still, there's a lot to improve on a Chris Reeve. But, you know, this is not straightforward stuff. And so I don't blame them for not being able to go there on every knife that they sell. Just kind of using this to clean off the pivot a little bit here. Okay. If I wanted to really obsess, I could go with this for hours, polishing off these washers, but I'm not gonna because it just doesn't make that much sense to. This is a knife that's going to get polished by use anyways. I just want to get any burrs off of there and put it in a better position than when I started. That's my key here. And especially because I'm sending this along to a viewer after I finish my review, I just want to make 100% sure that it's as good as I can get it. Yeah, the inside of that washer isn't perfect, but you know what? It'll do for the moment. And then finally, I want to make sure that I use a Q-tip here. Spilling booze everywhere. Just use a Q-tip to get inside the pivot here and inside this little area where the compression lock lives to make sure that I've removed all the gunk that I can see. Okay. Right here, that's gunk that was inside the pivot hole. That's the kind of thing that slows an action down, makes it a little less than ideal. Okay, I have now retentively cleaned this knife. This knife is in as good a shape as I'm going to get it without spending a couple of more hours on it. So you know what? Let's just go to town and put this guy back together. First off, I need to, in my brain, do some geometry here. So the clip is going to go on this side, which means that I'm going to use the 10-weight nano oil here because compression locks and knives that tend to fall shut nicely. And so I want to use something that supports that. Oh, probably help if I put it in the right hole. There are many, many jokes to be made there, but I'm going to take the high road. Kinda. Okay, now what we're going to do is drop this in here. You can see here that there is a D shape. There you go. There's a bit of a D shape in there, and there's a D shape on the pivot. There we are. And that should allow me to mate those two, and that's how the pivot is not free spinning. There we go. It's dropped in. I forgot a step. Because this goes against the inside of the scales here, I am going to go ahead and throw some frog lube onto the back of these scales. Not super necessary, but, you know, who knows. And again, it's something I might skip just for me, but for a viewer, I always want things to be as good as they can be. I really do depend on you guys. The only way that this channel makes sense for me is with the loaners and with the viewers who are really kind and generous and trying to make this good for me too. And so anything I can do to improve life for those viewers, oh man, you're gems, each and every freaking one of you. Even the ones who just comment around. I'll admit, it's kind of a pleasure for me to, on a day that a video posts, you know, look and see what people are saying. You know, they're the predictable jerks and trolls and whatnot out there. I definitely have some people who are more than happy to point out any errors or mistakes I may have made, but that's okay. But I do get a real kick out of reading responses from people. I'm just narcissistic like that. Okay, I'm going to put the smoother side towards the blade here. After I drop a nano oil drop there. Oh, come on, you little bugger. Get in there. Come on. There we are. There's that. Put a little bit of oil onto the washer itself. On this side, on the blade here, I'm going to go ahead and fill the detent hole with some nano oil and apply a little bit to the detent track. I am rebuilding this from the wrong damn side. No, I'm not. It's a compression lock knife. The liner goes on the other side. Okay, I get it. Whatever. Before I drop the blade on, I'm going to put a little bit more. There we go. Huh. Put that there. Drop in the stop pin. Now I'm going to drop in the back spaces. You can see, ideally, come on, you little bugger, that the back spaces have a sawed-off portion here. They are D-shaped, and so they need to go on the right side. That D-shape is on only one side of the back spacer. The other side is rounded, and so that just means that this is not symmetrical. You're going to need to make sure that you're flipped in the right direction. So, and that is a truly beautiful thing because it means that the back spacer won't just spin and spin and spin as you're trying to undo the screw. So, there you go. That's nice. Okay, now we can go ahead and... Oh, lanyard tube. Put that in there. Let's try and drop that on there. There we go. Oh, hey. Skipping a step here. Come on. Turns out you want washers on both sides of the knife. Huh. Oh, little bugger. Drop that there. A little bit of oil. Why not? Now I can put this back on there. Hey. Hashtag not a brilliant man. But all's well that ends well. You can see right here some of the gunk left over from the Loctite. Spyderco does love their Loctite, that's for sure. Now, one little note here. You can see that of the screws that are required to put this knife together, 4 of them are of one size, and 1 of them is longer than that. So we're going to use the one long one in the pivot here. Counting the number of screws of a given size is a useful thing, and not just in building IKEA furniture. Interestingly, my viewer to whom this is heading next is in Sweden, and so he probably knows a thing or two about assembling IKEA furniture, if I understand anything about the Sweden. There we go. So the far screw here was a little bit too far out. It was just having some trouble seating itself, and so I had to use the other screw to effectively pull it back in. No problem there. Now I need to think about which direction the knife hangs in the pocket. For me, it'll hang like this, so I mount the clip on that side. Mounting a Spyderco wire clip is occasionally a pain in the neck here, because you've got a... there we go. You have to have the screw inside the 2 tines of the clip, and so the best way that I've found to do this is actually to use the clip to pinch the screw, to maneuver it into position, and then that looked really slick, but that's the result of years of intensive study. There we go. So that way it's right there already, and you're not trying to feed the screw in from between those tines, and that's no good. May that be my biggest problem for the day. Note, of course, that this clip is ambidextrous. You can put it to either side there. That'll be nice. I'm using a little bit of blue Loctite here, because that can come off pretty easily. But it is enough to make sure that the knife isn't going to randomly disassemble itself as you're using it. I really wish Spyderco would use that instead. Although, again, I'm sure their costs are affected by idiots who take apart their knives and are not able to put them back together because they haven't watched a series of high-quality YouTube videos. Yeah, that's got to be it, sure. Holy crap. Okay, so right now there's blade play, so I need to tighten this action down a little bit here. Still a little blade play, tighten it down. No blade play, good. Back it off slightly. Let's tweak it a little further here. See how much we can get away with. Little bit play there. And of course, the danger here is always that a brand new knife is not going to be fully broken in yet. And so it may be that at first, in order for it to truly fall shut, you need for the washers to wear in a bit. Everything to get mated to itself. So you can't be too obsessed. Oh, yeah. And zero play. Hey, now watch this. Compression lock. It's still wearing in. Either way, this is going to be a smooth knife, 100%. And can I tweak this back a little bit further? Yeah. Beautiful. I may need to more importantly, Magnus may need to readjust this in the future once it wears in, maybe tighten the pivot down a little bit further. But that's the joy of a pivot like that. You can keep it in adjustment. And now at this point, the knife is a fall-shutty, beautiful compression lock knife. And you got the Sage 5 there. That's your disassembly. Just remember the hairdryer trick. Do not just go at this with torque and torque and torque, because then you're just going to strip your screws and you're going to have a bad time. You're going to be emailing Spyderco and doing the walk of shame. So don't go there. Use the hairdryer first. So, hope this has been interesting. That one a little long, but hey, is what it is. Hope you found this interesting, and have yourself an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, and be on the lookout for some Sage advice coming up soon. Bye now.